Greetings. The International College of Behavioral Counseling welcomes you to Life-Defining Axioms. Each axiom contains essential wisdom for living. And today's axiom is a command. Get off the cactus, or get off your cactus, perhaps would be a better way to put it. Let's presume for a moment that a lady comes into my office and she has complaints. She says, "Doctor, I've got a terrible pain in my buttocks." I say, buttocks? Yes, my bottom. I got a terrible pain in my bottom. I can't sit any place. I go to bed at night. There's a pain there. The pain never leaves me. I've gone to my physician. He can't prescribe any medication to me. I went to my pastor, had a prayer vigil, tried an exercise program, tried eating aspirin, tried to eat aspirin and water and the orange juice. Nothing seems to help me. Please help me, doctor. This pain is overwhelming me. Well, as a therapist, I would try to identify some of the sources. So I would want to disqualify some of the places it might come from and try to identify the place where it does come from. So I ask her some very significant questions. I say, "Ma'am, how long have you suffered this?" She said, "Oh, about 6 months, really." I said, "Are you married?" And she says, "Well, yes." Then I ask the next question, "Are you happily married?" And she tells me. Why do I ask that question? Because 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 28, Paul the apostle is talking, and he says, "Listen, I wish that all of you would be like me. I wish that all of you were single, just like me, because you can give your time and your effort to the Lord. If you're married, you have to give it to your spouse. I wish that you were all single like me." And if a person marries, he's not sinned. Imagine putting it in that context. Those of you who are married, you really haven't sinned. You know that, okay? You have scriptural proof for that. If a person marries, he's not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh. Now, the neck is flesh, the back is flesh, the arms are flesh, the buttocks is flesh. And there are some marriages that are a real pain in the bottom, especially if the marriage is an unhealthy marriage, like kids fighting all the time. It's a pain in the flesh, all right. So I ask that question. Then I ask about the children. How about your children? Tell me about your children. About your employ. Are you happily employed? Do you have any conflict anywhere in the neighborhood, in the church, in the at work, at the grocery store? Do you have any conflict any place? Because you see, psychosomatic disorders can cause a great deal of problem. Where did you first notice this pain? Now we're pretty well narrowing it down. And she says, "Well, I first noticed it when my husband brought home for me a sofa, a brand new sofa for my living room. It's beautiful. I sit on it almost daily and have my tea in the morning and watch the morning television show. Uh, I love it." And then she pulls out a picture of the sofa, and here it is. It's made out of cactus. Now, I'm not a nuclear scientist, neither am I a jet propulsion guru. I'm not a rocket scientist by any means, but I've already figured what the problem is right here. The pinholes in her gluteus maximus line up with the spines in her sofa. She's sitting on cacti. And I say to her, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I really can't help you. I'm going to disqualify myself." And she said, but you come so highly recommended. I need help. Please help me." I said, "I'm sorry. I can't help you. There's nothing I can do to help you. No one can do anything to help you. It doesn't matter how much you cry out, 'Help, help, help.' No one can help you. No physician or therapist can give you any help. No pastor or prayer vigil, no medication, no exercise program, no diet or self-improvement program. Nothing can help you unless you get off the cactus. You alone must do it. That's why I can't help you. That's why no one can help you, because you alone must do it. However, you can't do it alone, and that's not an oxymoron. That's a fact. You alone must do it, and you need the help of God to do it, but you can do it. You must do it. One cannot get healing unless you get off the cacti. So get off the cacti. And so I'm asking you today, right now, what is your cacti? What's the cactus you're sitting on? Is it lust? Perhaps drug or alcohol addiction? Maybe you have an inordinate love for television or food. Did you know that the scripture puts gluttony and alcohol in the same verse, in the same sentence? Some of us are really addicted to food. Is that your cacti? Or gambling? Or perhaps cell phones right now? They're called smartphones with games. They're actually captivating. Or perhaps sleep. You see, anything can become inordinate in your life, beyond ordinary. I had a friend who loved checkers. He just loved checkers so much. He even carried a fold-up checkerboard in his pocket and little discs so that if he meets somebody, he could play checkers. One day God said to him, Amos, checkers are a sin. But he said, that's just a simple game. He says, no, not for you. It's not a simple game. Perhaps for others, it's a simple game, but you are totally captivated by it. That game owns you. You don't own it. And so we can make anything a cacti. Well, there are emotional cacti also. Self-pity, poor me. I will sit there and marinate in the juice of my own self-pity, and I will just love it. Or anger, or depression, or hate, or unforgiveness, or revenge. And let me tell you, that's a toxic poison that you carry within you, and it does more damage to the person who carries it than the person that he's angry at. What's your cacti? I've discovered one thing. You cannot sit on a cactus without doing irreparable damage to your gluteus maximus. Or in some of our cases, it might be gluteus maximum. I don't know. But you cannot sit on a cacti without hurting yourself. You pierce yourself with these spines. You pierce yourself with many sorrows. Here's a young man, a nice young man. He's pierced himself with his cacti. How would you like it if your daughter brought him home to meet the parents for supper? Or perhaps this gentleman right here, at least he's got a smile on his face. But his behavior did this to himself. Just like sitting on a cacti will cause pinholes in your gluteus maximus the same way. And we need to do something about it. Paul the Apostle in Romans chapter 6, verse 16 through 19 says this, and I'm paraphrasing it here. Don't you know that the thing that you yield yourself to is the thing that you serve? You're a servant of the thing that you yield yourself to, whether it's unto death, do you obey it unto death, or whether it's righteousness unto God? The thing that you yield yourself to controls you. You don't control it. And so here's your challenge. So Paul, at the beginning of Romans chapter 6, verse 16 through 19 says, don't you know that to whom you yield yourself as servants to obey, his servants you are, whether it is to obey sin unto death, or whether your obedience is unto righteousness, which is salvation. And then he gives us a challenge in the latter part of that verse. He said, for as you have yielded your members as instruments of unrighteousness and uncleanliness unto sin, so now yield or submit your members as instruments of righteousness unto God. Choose well and live well. Well, what I have shared with you is not only good theology, it's great psychology, and it's essential wisdom for living. I'm Wilf Kent. Visit our website, icbconline.org. Until next time, farewell and keep well.